cop leave? Okay, looks like the cop left. I pulled in and there was a cop. I was like, I did nothing, sir. Please don't give me a ticket. I'm just starting my ride. And the duck is thirsty. All my bikes, every time, yesterday I rode the M1000RR and that bike was like empty. Today I'm riding the V4R and this bike is very empty too. I'm like, what the? Why am I not filling these bikes up? Since when? Only 3 gallons? For the V4R? I thought I was very low. Maybe this tank is even smaller. Honestly, this bike is a bit louder than I expect. I feel like I always say it's not as loud, especially with the Acura. And yeah, the Acura is a lot quieter than the SC that I used to have on it. At the same time, I think it's the tone of the bike. The decibel video that I filmed recently, you guys should check it out because a lot of you guys requested it and I finally filmed it, and it took a while to film that video. Taught me a thing or two about like the sounds that like, even if sometimes like a bike sounds louder doesn't mean it is actually louder, because a lot of the bikes that sound sharper, if that makes sense, more raspy, which is the sound that I like, they sound louder, you know what I mean? The deep bikes like this one, similar like the Aprilia as well, which are the V4 engines typically, they're a little deeper sounding and therefore they don't sound as loud necessarily. So yeah, this bike has a just like, you know, like deep bass. It's pretty loud, but it's not sharp. So it doesn't sound as loud as some of my other bikes. But as the decibel meter showed, I think this bike was at like, what, 118 or something like that? Which is still pretty high. It's been such a long time since I've ridden it. The last time I actually rode the V4R, I didn't film. We did a little photo shoot nearby the house and I wore my 75th anniversary edition Pista. Follow me on Instagram, same name as the YouTube channel, I'm K. If you guys want to see these videos, it's gonna look epic. I love this bike and this is one of the best looking and sounding bikes in my opinion. So I meant looking and riding. Not sounding, definitely not sounding. I feel like it's one of the worst sounding. It sounded a lot better when I had the SC on it, but you know, we had to do the full system Acura on this for the, you know, those little power gains here and there. The topic of today's video is going to be a lot of talking, so for those of you guys that want like, oh, like ride, don't talk as much, that was the last video or the last couple of videos. I have to alternate back and forth and I can't make everyone happy, so in today's video it's gonna be a lot of talking, and it's mainly gonna be about how having a lot of different bikes makes you like a worse rider. I've definitely experienced that firsthand. I felt like I used to be like a better rider. I used to have like up to, I would say like 4, maybe 5 bikes, because you can kind of get used to the way these bikes feel, because each bike rides very, very differently. In general, you're gonna be, if you know how to ride 1 liter bike, you can ride most liter bikes, you know what I mean? But if you're trying to like go faster or be more comfortable, you know, because most of the time when we're riding these bikes, I'm assuming if you're on a liter bike, you aren't the newest rider, you know, I mean, you have some sort of experience, and at that point when you have some sort of experience, oh my god, there's a lot of traffic, and I'm riding my most expensive motorcycle, which is never fun. It's always stressful because I have to be extra careful with cars switching lanes on me and stuff like that, especially because this bike is not as loud as some of my other bikes. That's even worse in this situation because they don't hear me coming, because as we said, like, yeah, it might be loud, but it's like pretty deep, not sharp and high pitch, so like you can't really hear it as much from far. Dry clutch takes away from the sound of this bike because it definitely makes it sound a little quieter because that dry clutch is so loud. But yeah, I was saying each one of these bikes rides so differently, especially like, let's say if you're like road racing, if you're riding on the track, they always like feel different, ride different in the sense of stability, in the way they take off, and how smooth and easy they are to ride. If I had to rank my bikes from ease to ride standpoint, I would say the easiest 2 bikes to ride that I have would be the M1000RR for sure, and I would go after the M1000RR with the Aprilia. I think the Aprilia is a very easy bike to ride, especially it's more like natural, I wouldn't say easy. because when you're speeding on that bike, taking turns and all, it does not give you any confidence. Whenever I'm going fast in, like, you know, straights or whatever, super easy to ride, the clutch feels good, the bike just rolls out, very, you know, normal, and I feel like anyone that knows how to ride can just hop on one and ride it and be like, oh, this is kind of nice and easy and fun at the same time, and it sounds amazing. M1000RR is the same thing. I would say that M1000RR is better than the Aprilia because it gives you a little bit more of that sense of stability, almost a little too much. Like, if you guys don't remember, when I took that M1000RR to the track, that bike gave me too much confidence that I was like all kind of like riding a little too aggressively. So I definitely had to tone it down because I'm like, holy, you know, like the bike is so fast and it gets up to speed so quickly, and it feels so like kind of composed, you know what I mean? So like when you're going into a turn, you're like, oh, I got this, and then you're like, oh my god, I like by the time you get to the turn, you're like, I'm going pretty fast here. It's almost like it's a cheat code. It's so like smooth and linear that like you feel good on it, but then you're realizing like you're going really fast, you know what I mean? You don't feel the speed. It's kind of weird. It's almost like a Tesla. Like my Plaid, you can go so fast in it and you're like, oh my god, I'm going this fast. Like that doesn't make sense because it's like so smooth and so effortless. That's what the M1000RR is. The RSV4 on the other hand feels somewhat the same way. It's louder, so I would say like, you know, it gives you more of a sense that you're like, oh my god, this is, you know, a crazy bike that I'm riding. So like, you know, because it sounds aggressive. I've definitely noticed on the RSV4, the Aprilia, is like when I took it to a canyon and stuff like that, I definitely noticed, thank you very much, when you're like mid-turn, so not like setting up to a turn, when you're like braking and all that, it feels pretty decent, pretty good, not the best, but pretty good. But when you're like mid-turn, I don't know if it's the suspension on my bike, I tried getting it adjusted and it feels a lot better, but now it's like so stiff that it literally, if I'm riding it right here where I am right now, it's so stiff that it hurts my back from how like stiff and bumpy it is. But it made it feel a lot better in corners. Still though, to this day, I feel like, I don't know, something about it is that like when I'm like leaning that bike, it just doesn't give me the most stability feel. I just feel like I'm kind of like shaky, you know what I mean? It's not like the most secure in the turn, which doesn't give you like the best confidence. The Fireblade, in my opinion, and the R1 are the best like in corners. They just feel super stable and they can carry pretty good corner speed. Now I haven't taken the Fireblade to track yet, but I've taken my R1M 2 times to the track, and both times it felt like pretty solid and great. Of course, I have the most seat time on the R1M and on the H2 as well, so like that plays in it a little bit, where I'm like the most comfortable with these two bikes. So obviously they're gonna feel a little bit better when I ride them, even though now that I haven't been riding the H2 as much as I used to, like way back. Same thing with the R1M. They definitely, like when I get back on them, I'm like, oh, I gotta get used to it for a split sec and then I'm good. What I'm trying to say is like, if you want to buy like different brands or like, you know, stuff like that, like what I do, I definitely, if you're trying to be like, you know, a really good rider, definitely like, it takes more mental to think about the bike you're riding and how this bike specifically reacts to certain scenarios. If you guys don't know, my first accident, the V4S, the accident partially happened because I wasn't as familiar with that bike. Like if I was on my R1M or H2, I would have slowed down a lot better in that corner that was like pretty blind, and would have taken the turn a lot easier. Now yeah, like there's a lot of other factors that I couldn't see. There was like a dip in the road, which mainly caused the accident, but definitely like being familiar with the bike plays a big part in controlling it, because you're used to the way that bike reacts. So switching around bikes, like the last time when I rode this, when we did the shoot, it was so hard to ride on this. I was like, whoa, this is so weird. Like when I'm releasing the clutch, the release, like the bike starts rolling all the way at the top of your lever. You have to release it pretty much a lot, and you have to give it a little bit of gas for the bike to start rolling. You know, it's like little things like that. Like if I'm in a hurry and I wanted to go, I could have like stalled it, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, I forgot that this bike like reacts differently than, let's say, like my H2. I feel like as soon as I start, or the H2R, even the H2, they're somewhat similar. When I start releasing that clutch, the bike starts rolling right away, and then I give it gas. You know, the Ducati, the R1M, those are different, where I literally have to like give it a little bit of throttle while releasing the clutch all the way in the end, and then the bike starts rolling. So like it literally affects everything from like the simple, you know, stop and go, to the more advanced stuff is like, let's say if you're roll racing, the M1000RR, I can't just like give it as much gas or like gear, and the RPM, everything's about it is different when you're trying to go fast with these bikes. The M1000RR, same with this bike. Like these bikes are super light, and I would say the V4R is better than the M1000RR. Yeah, see, like just in that situation too, like I read the V4 a little bit too much, because I thought like as soon as I release the clutch, like it's gonna go, but it kind of like I was still like holding the clutch even though it's like all the way at the top. Things like that where usually you don't think about it, because you know, especially for someone that motovlogs like me, when I'm talking, I'm not like 100%, you know, like focused on the little things about riding. I'm focused about like, you know, the major stuff, like avoiding accidents and stuff like that. But in general, it's most of it is muscle memory, since I've been riding for like 6 years or so. So yeah, usually most of it is like muscle memory. I'm used to like riding in a certain way, and then I have to kind of like get used to like riding this specific bike in a different way, because you know, a lot of like the characteristics of these bikes are different, especially for me that likes, my goal has always been to collect like the best bike of each brand. That makes it very difficult to me. Like the good thing about the H2 and the H2R is that like they're still somewhat in the same family, even though they're so different, share a similar feel and characteristics between them. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about pretty much that it is kind of like hard and different to ride like different bikes. And I mentioned that because I want to tell you guys that, like, what do you guys think about like selling some bikes that I don't ride as much? Like the Aprilia doesn't do it as well on the channel, to be honest. As much as I love that bike, it doesn't do that well. Similar thing with, let's say, the KTM and what's up? Good, good. How are you? We're actually installing some parts today, which I'm gonna do for the next video for you guys. It's gonna be separate than this one, since I haven't ridden this bike so much. I was like, I'll do 2 little videos, one more talking about it, the other one is a little different. But yeah, I was saying, what do you guys think about like getting rid of, let's say, the Aprilia, the KTM, and possibly the Rush, and getting bikes that are a little more exotic? The Rush could stay because, you know, it is a cool exotic bike. The Aprilia and the KTM, they don't do that well on the channel. So what if like I got rid of these two and got something that is more unique and special, that is in the same family, let's say, as like Ducati or BMW, but more specialty bikes? So that's an option that I've been thinking about and wanted to ask you guys about it too. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and I'll start the next video and we'll start installing parts for you guys. But I hope you guys like this video, kind of just a little information that I wanted to talk about because I was thinking about it earlier. And we'll do the next video in a sec.